Okay, so now would be a good time to cover a little more territory when we talk about using the for function in any of our sketches. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes here and just give some sort of a brief overview of how we can use it. I know we've looked at it, but we're going to focus just on using the for loop right now, just for a few moments. So to start with, I've already created a sketch here. I've already named it, and I've thrown a little bit of a header information in here. I haven't put anything else in because what I want to do is I do want to open up a serial port, and I'm going to go again with the 9600, nice and safe and stable. And actually, one thing that I want to do is, because I'm going to do a few demonstrations, I want to throw in here into this setup something that lets us know that in fact the code has been rerun. Okay, so we'll see it on display. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to have it say something. Let's go with, we'll just go with just saying it's been rebooted. Oops. All right. So every time we load this code, it's going to say that it's rebooted. And let's throw in a little bit of a delay so that it doesn't just kind of go crazy. And then actually what I'm going to do is take and put a dead space. And I'm going to do that by just putting out some quotes with nothing in it. All right, so if I load this, what should happen is we'll get it to open up a window. And let me load it up again one more time. Oh, there we saw it. Okay. So it prints out rebooted, and then it moves into the main loop. All right. So now the other thing I want to do is I want to see how many times. Right now it's running, believe it or not. It's zipping through the loop, and there's nothing in the loop, so it's busy doing nothing. Okay. So what we want to do now is we want to have it give us an idea how many times the loop has been run for this demonstration. So I'm going to create a global variable. This variable will be useful for any function in the code. So I'm putting it up there above setup. It's not within the function, it's above it, so it's going to be available for everything. And I'm just going to call it counter, and I'm going to set it equal to 0 to start with. And I'm actually going to cheat a little bit. I've kind of written a little snippet over here. So what I'm going to do is put in the loop right here. What's going to happen is the first thing it's going to do is counter is going to go up by 1. So that plus plus means increment by 1. And we'll see that actually when we do the loop. And it's going to print out the main loop has run with a space. Then it's going to print out the value of counter. And then it's going to write the word times, and it's going to delay. So if I load this up, what we should see over here is that it'll tell us that it's been rebooted. And then it's going to, every second, print out how many times that loop has been run. Okay? So now we have a tracker. We'll know every time it comes back to the loop, and we'll know how many times it's been to the loop. And that's going to help us keep track of what's actually happening in the functions that we're about to write. Okay, so that being said, let's write our first little demonstration function. Just going over the for loop. All right. So what do we want to do? Let's write an example function. I think I'll just call it example. We'll call it example 1. All right, so there's example 1. And what I want to do in example 1 is I'm going to create a for loop. So for, and we're going to create a variable, integer I, and we'll set it equal to 0. Then, semicolons, let's go while I is less than or equal to 10, and then let's do an I++. So therefore, it's going to increment by 1. Okay? So let's run our loop. Scroll this down so you guys can see more of this code. And I'm actually going to, again, I'm just going to copy a little information I have off to the side so you don't have to wait for me to type. So what I'm going to do is we're going to print the value of I. So every time this loop runs, it's going to print the value is, and then it's going to print out the value of I at that particular moment, and it's going to delay a brief time. So if I load this, what we're going to see that it's going to be counting over here. Rebooted. Oops, what am I doing? Look at that. See what I didn't do? I actually didn't call my code. So we have to actually call the function. Okay. And let's try that again. So now you can see I've actually called it. And it's been rebooted. Now notice here what's happening. See how it's stuck in this loop? Okay. So for the entire time, it calls example 1, it comes down here, and it's stuck here. It doesn't go back to the main loop. It is stuck here until the job is done. So what we see is the main loop has run now 3 times, and it's stuck here until the job is done. Now the loop has run 4 times, and it's stuck in that for loop until the job is done. All right? So I'm actually going to put another piece of code. I want to show you this. Also to show you that in fact it is stuck there. So outside, so notice how we've got 2 sets of braces. We've got this one here, which is for the function, and we have this one here, which is for the for. All right? So it's stuck inside of this, okay, until that value gets up to 10. So if I put something here, in which case I'm going to say, hey, I'm going back to the main loop, and then a dead space, you're going to see, when we load it up, that it's going to be stuck, and then as soon as it gets up to the value of 10, it manages to make it outside of this inner loop, and it does this one little thing right there, okay, back to the main loop, and then it jumps up to the main loop, and then it goes to this counter, prints it out, and then it goes back down to this example, okay? So every time you're in a for loop, it is trapped in that for loop until it completes the job. So, that being said, let me pause this and set up yet another little example. Hold on. Okay, so here I've set up another example, example 2, and all I want to demonstrate here is that in this particular case, instead of plus plus, I'm using minus minus, so we're going to see that this thing counts down. So I go up here, I comment out my first one, I call my second one my example 2, and it should count down as it goes. And if we do that here, it should start off at 10, rebooted, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, and then of course, once it breaks out of this, it does its little back to the main loop, goes up here, gets called again, and comes back down. Okay? So let me do another quick example. I'll be right back with you. Okay, so this time I've done example 3, and if I scroll on down to example 3, you can see what I've done here is instead of using a plus plus or a minus minus, I've actually put in a value. Okay, I was interested in only seeing even numbers, all right? So what I did is I made it count down from 10 to 0, but I used this minus equal 2. Okay, so it's going to be counting by 2s, and I can make that any number I want. I can make that 3s, for example, if I load it up. And you're going to see that it has a different arrangement here by counting by 3s. So as it goes, it counts by 3s. All right? So by using this plus equal or minus equal, I can use other mathematical equations or expressions to be able to do the job within my for loop. All right, let me pause it one last time and set up another thing. Okay, so let's take a careful look at this last example. In this case, I have 2 for loops. All right, I've got an outer loop and an inner loop. Remember, the inner loop is going to get trapped. It's going to keep going until this value, in this case, gets up to 10. All right, when that value is true, it exits. And then it does this little thing here where it prints a dead space. Then it's stuck in this outer loop, right? It still hasn't made it here because this loop here is still counting. So what we see is we see the outer loop, all right, is the one that's set by the value of y, and it's slowly going up, and the inner loop is going fairly quickly. And until we reach 10s on both of them, then it breaks and goes out to the to the main loop. All right. So this one runs over and over again until it gets done. Then it increments the outer loop by 1. Then it gets back into the inner loop. It goes over and over again until its value becomes 10. Then it exits the inner loop, goes to the outer loop, increments by 1, and then it gets stuck in here again, so over and over again, and not until the outer loop and the inner loop are true does it actually go and exit both loops, and then go back to the main loop. And when it goes back to the main loop, of course, the main loop just calls it again, and the process repeats. So hopefully this was a little bit useful, and I'm sure I will see you all again soon.